gosh, it's so difficult. I mean, when I did the first analysis, I mean, remember, when I'm starting to the analysis season,
Hmm.
so I don't have a clue where it's going. I'm just reading Josephus, right?
Hmm.
And I start to see connections, and I then, because I'm stubborn, I tried to kind of figure them out. I come with different ideas how they would work, and eventually I realized they're all in the same sequence. And then the next thing you know, you're working on Caesar's Messiah. But
Hmm.
I didn't have cynicism toward the religion when I began. I was just a reader of the text and came up with kind of a different way of understanding it. It was very depressing and
Hmm.
difficult for me to deal with, and I didn't really want. I had a lot of kind of doubt as to whether or not it was a good idea to even bring out the analysis. I
Hmm.
put it in a box. I'd written a bunch of notes, kind of the beginning of what becomes Caesar Messiah.
Hmm.
I had them all written down, put it in a box, and I just put it in a desk. It stayed there for 2 years.
Hmm.
I got away from it. I didn't. It just wasn't clear to me that it was a good idea. Personally, also, I could say, well, this could lead to a lot of problems for my family and things. I'm not sure I want to what is the purpose of it? Is it going to be good or bad? But eventually, I started to realize, it's like, we really should stand as much as we
Hmm.
can, as a species on reality, on truth.
Hmm.
The Romans want us to see this. They want the religion to be brought to a conclusion, and
Hmm.
so we should just put it out there and
Hmm.
and hope for the best. And then after the fact, I'm now very pleased I did it, because when you get to things like the COVID vaccine or
Hmm.
analyzing 911, and you get to these
Yeah.
these moments where you really want the public to be skeptical, I could at least say, look, I was part of the process of skepticism and not of mental obedience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
just, even though I know it's so painful, because I was like brought up in a Catholic family.
Hmm.
My uncle was a Monsignor, and my original kind of training school training was in a St. Mary's Military Academy in Tokyo. My
Really?
family was living there after the war, and these priests, the ones who were like teaching me, they were my heroes. I mean, I
Hmm.
I really saw them as just kind of were working with me, trying to develop my mind, and it
Hmm.
was, I really had a lot of allegiance to them. And so it was very painful to me, to actually
Hmm.
see the reality of their lives, and of like sort of that part of mine. But what are you going to do? You gotta you
Hmm.
gotta kind of go forward as best you
Yeah.
can. And
Yeah.
that's all I can say is
Yeah.
is that we're now, with understanding of how the oligarchs are using propaganda and
Hmm.
mental control for their purposes and against the interests of mankind. I mean, in
Hmm.
general, I'm really happy that the analysis is out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're a new or the reincarnation of Bruno Bauer, really. I think Bruno Bauer was the first. Would you agree?
First, I'm aware of, yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah, Brower. Um,
Yeah.
so he was, had he did it. You can kind of come to an understanding of the Roman provenance of Christianity just by
Hmm.
understanding history.
Yeah,
And I think that's kind of
exactly.
what Bauer did. He didn't have real specific literary analytic moments. He was
Hmm.
more just saying, history looks to him, and he was like that he was kind of part of Karl Marx's world, and so they were very skeptical of propaganda. At least, at that particular time, they were presenting that they believed that. So Bauer brought out his kind of skepticism concerning the origin of Christianity,
Hmm.
and that led to kind of the beginning of a little better criticism. The book that I read that really most influenced me was Robert Eisenman's book, James, the Brother of Jesus.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I
Have to
thought
get
that
that
book.
one.
I thought his analysis was uh, I would not convincing, but it was very stimulating.
Hmm.
He was saying that, look, a lot of these passages look like they have a Roman hand.
Hmm.
and he was contrasting the Christian gospel with the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Hmm.
And I thought, that's a really good, kind of position to take intellectually. It's a
Hmm.
good analytic position to
Yeah.
start with. He didn't go particularly far into kind of decoding the Gospels, but he set up kind of the skepticism, and as to who might have produced it, and so I had read that book, and I could see I needed to read Josephus because I could see if I was going
Hmm.
to do any analysis of the Gospels, and I was curious about them. Um, from historical position, you just have to use Josephus. There's nothing else available.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so and Eisenman was talking a lot about Josephus, and I hadn't read it, so I got his histories, read it, and that was, I hadn't read Bruno Bauer. I wasn't really aware of his work. I mean, I kind of knew about him, but had never read any of his things. So um, it's funny. I didn't have any training at all that wasn't formal Catholic catechism. You know
Really?
what I mean? I had a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
I had been at in St. Mary's. We were looking at the passages in Greek quite a lot. They would actually, and Latin, because I was an altar boy.
Hmm.
So this
Okay.
was a Latin mass, so I
Hmm.
was using those languages in relationship to to Jesus, um, and so I had that kind of a background, but I hadn't had any training at all in you know Catholic criticism, New Testament scholarship criticism
Hmm.
ever.
Hmm.
And that was actually a benefit to me, it turns out, because I didn't have any of the preconceptions that are mistaken. I just had a
Hmm.
kind of the child's mind, the blank mind. I was just curious, and
Hmm.
so I was able to see connections that other people didn't.